All right, everybody. Hey, welcome to the show. On this episode, we are going to be talking about electronic voice phenomenon. Gary Arnold is a researcher who has focused his time on ethereal entities who can be heard through EVP recordings. These entities seem to have the ability to know the future or telepathically read the mind of those asking questions. Gary Arnold is next. Maybe he's next. We're gonna see here. We got a little delay here. Hold on a second here, folks. Apologize about that. Trying to find the one here, and here's the intro. We got it right now. Here, this is the fun part whenever I do it along. So this makes the chaos here. So everybody, here is the intro now. Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name's Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is quite then live to send the innocent to their death? Is this justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, welcome. Now we're going to have a real thing here. Now it'll be all legit. Gary, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Live and well. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Apologize that. Good God, man. It's one of those things. It is literally, it's something that I don't know how many times I've tried it. I just cannot. I'm all prepared. I got all this stuff. And then I'm just fumbling around trying to find the button. And everything just goes. It's just a normal thing.
No problem here.
Oh, man. So, yeah. So we've got. And yep, Mona, we can see you there. Chassie, we see you there. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm going to have up here for everybody. So you can find out more information on Gary and his research. We are not alone -81923.medium.com, but you can also just go We Are Not Alone, all one word, space medium, and you'll be able to find that by search. So, but that's up there. Check these out because this is. I listened to a few podcasts that you've been on before and watch those. You can go on YouTube as well, and you can watch. You've got a bunch of short clips, that show these things. Yeah. And for anybody, so I think most people that are into the phenomenon, ghosts and paranormal activity, they understand what an EVP is. They understand like the class A, like what's a really good one. But the thing this is the first time I have to say I've never heard of anybody using a track phone as their EVP recorder. So when we get in that, that's the incredible thing. So that's one of the questions, but we'll just kind of start where this all began. It was December of 2017.
Correct.
When you're, I think it was lunch break, if I'm not wrong.
That's correct. I work at a local HBCU in Pennsylvania, southeastern Pennsylvania. And it was a lunch break. I take my lunch in the library deliberately so I could avoid questions from the kids during my lunch break, the students. I teach writing, academic support role. And anyhow, the students had already gone home, all right, for the semester, but we were still there finishing up our semester reports. So I go over and take my usual lunch break in the library. And during that, I decided I'm going to do a little free reading, Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. All right. Mm-hmm. So everybody's familiar with that story, right? But it's actually a very short story if you read it. Unlike the TV movies, the movies made about it. This is a very short read. I sat down to start reading this, and of course I'm familiar with it, but I just thought, oh, it's Christmas time, holidays, I'll read it. And I got this really, really incredibly annoying, strange ear ringing in only my right ear. I don't know how to describe it except that it was intense and it has a coded component to it. So think like Morse code, but also very high frequency, like an insect or a bat, if you've ever heard of bat.
Mhm.
And so anyhow, it was so annoying, and I'm like, oh, what is that noise? And I have an old school track phone that my wife made me purchase a phone because she could just call my office, but she's like, I want to be able to reach you everywhere. And I'm not Mr. Tech savvy, so I'm not out there buying the latest smartphone. Like my kids, my wife, they all have smartphones and everything. And I have the old school Alcatel A205 track phone. Anyhow, a thought comes into my mind when this strange noise is happening in only my right ear, that maybe with the old digital recorder on the phone, I could capture something about this noise and then say, well, what is this? Maybe figure it out. So I push record, all right, on this old school phone. Upon playback, I expected to hear this annoying sound, all right, but instead I hear a whisper, just a whisper that whispers my name. It says Mr. Arnold. Okay, I'm taken aback. I'm a little perplexed, obviously. The ear ringing stopped, and that's when I stopped pushing record, and so I was like, and I try to figure out, well, how is somebody goofing me? Is there somebody here who's doing something with some kind of CB radio or whatever, walkie-talkie to make me hear my name? I couldn't figure it out, and I scratched my head, but it stopped then and there, and I finished reading a little bit of Charles Dickens, but it was just curiosity. So the next day, I have to have my lunch break. Kind of curiosity kills the cat, so to speak. I go back and I decide I'm gonna, and if this happens, I'm gonna try to ask a question this time. And the ear ringing happens in only my right ear again. This is specific to just my right ear, and when it happens, I push record. But I have a question. I say, is anybody there? Now understand, the library is totally vacated. All right. The only person would be the librarian on the lowest floor. I'm at the top floor of the library. This person's, the lady's at the lowest floor. There's no one else in the library. Upon playback of the recording, when this weird noise happens, I ask, is anybody there? I hear, before I ask my question, which, understand, this is crazy stuff too. Yes, people is the response. And it's emphatic. Now, okay, I'm really, really uncomfortable with like what's going on. I can't figure out how somebody could be, goofing, spoofing this, and somebody could be, screwing with me. So I start to get concerned. Like, well, is this something like some kind of audio hallucination? Is this something that I need to be worried about? Maybe the onset of some dementia, schizophrenia, even though it doesn't run in my family. I just needed to get to the bottom of it and say, is there a brain tumor? So I go and I tell my wife about it afterwards. And I said, this happened again. I'm now concerned because it seemed like it was an intelligent response to a question. And there's nobody there except for me. And it's just like, so I consulted with her, and of course we're both very concerned. And I went to see my family doctor, and in order to get the insurance company to pay for it, you have to come up with this is a medical reason. Let's explore audio hallucinations. Let me again say very clearly, I do not hear voices in my head. Nothing like that. Nobody's talking to me. All I hear is this strange, when they want to communicate, this strange, and I say we'll get to that in a minute, this strange coded crystalline insect kind of noise that's annoying, very loud, and it almost has it feels like a pressure is happening at the same time, almost like a tapping. Anyhow, so we started to go down the path where I had the high contrast, high detail MRIs. I had a comprehensive blood work, full panel, full spectrum, meeting with psychiatrists, everything. We needed, is there a prosaic or an organic reason, the brain tumor, whatever is causing this? And this became something that would happen on a daily basis when I take my lunch break. So the weird thing is it became these voices, and that's what they are. They started to answer questions. I mean, I started to have an interaction with them on a daily basis in the library, to the point where They would discuss about my family, pets that had died. It's crazy stuff. And they would answer questions directly before I asked them. Upon playback, you would hear them ask, I asked the question, but they answer the question before I ask it, which is really perplexing. And I started to play these for my family doctor. And he was definitely, he's a man of faith. And he said he's been praying about the situation and what I'm encountering. And he said that God told him that I have a gift. Well, I have a sense of humor. All right. So I kind of, I laugh a little bit. I said, Doc, you gotta, can you talk to God? Maybe I can re-gift this. I can send this to somebody who wants this, because it's too outlandish. It's too crazy. I'm a rational person. I've never really believed in hocus pocus or, this kind of nonsense. And I don't do any rituals when this happens. But the thing is, this evolved into, the doctors could find nothing wrong. All right. And yet I'm playing these clips. There's no organic reason. There's no psychological reason. I am filming it, so you don't see me doing some kind of ventriloquism or some kind of nonsense to try to fake this. And I started to get other researchers involved. Now, to understand, I'm not a researcher. I'm an experiencer. In the sense, I'm looking into it, if you want to call that research. But there are people with credentials who I enlisted to help me, people who actually have the PhDs and stuff, people who have the connections. I don't have the resources to do much. I mean, I'm just a regular guy. Like I said, I work in academia, happily married. I have 2 wonderful kids. This fell into my lap. I didn't raise my hand, ask for it. So what happened? These voices became more and more pronounced, more and more Class A EVPs. Class A EVP is if I play it to a group of people and don't tell people what they should hear, most people in that group will hear what the EVP is. They'll interpret it the same way. Mm-hmm. Like I have my webpage, you have a few examples and stuff. One of them, like I also raise pigeons. That's one of my passions. I'm passionate about pigeons. I raise pigeons, import pigeons. Believe me, there are all kinds of pigeons, rainbow pigeons from the tropics. I have emerald doves. I have so much, it's a good time. My son, he also joins me in raising pigeons, my daughter. But anyhow, long story short, I started to get this relationship with these ethereal entities to the point where I could ask them any question, all right, and they would have the answer before I asked it. 9 times out of 10, they would be heard, an intelligent response to my question. Invisible entities who claim to be alien. I ask questions like that. And I ask because I have extra homing pigeons, and homing pigeons aren't worth a lot unless they're like really valuable homers that actually have won lots of races. I had some extra white homing pigeons. I'm saying extra pair of those. So I thought, well, this earring is happening. I'm going to ask what the entities think about me selling these pigeons. So that clip's also on my website. You can listen to it. An emphatic solemn is heard before I ask the question. So you end up with, I'm having interactions with beings who claim to be alien, who claim to be otherworldly, but are also very mischievous. All right, who also claim, and I have the clip, who claim, and it was September 2020, and the question was on everybody's mind over here, who is going to win the U.S. presidential election? Now, I asked that question, kind of ballsy. I thought, well, let's get the answer. Mm-hmm. And before I asked the question, you hear emphatically Donald Trump. Now, we all know how that election turned out. All right. So again, but I was told by people who are researching said, you better pull that clip because no matter what, this is not a winning situation. If Donald Trump, because this is September when I had the clip, if Donald Trump wins the election, half of America is going to hate you and they're going to put you in that same category as the MyPillow guy. And the other half's going to love you. And would you really want this? No matter what, it's a hot potato. And I said, well, and the prediction or the prophecy or whatever you want to call it, because I'm not a prophet. Whatever this prediction, it just, again, seemed to confirm there's an element of mischievousness about these beings. And I could go on and on. It's crazy stuff. I've actually I enlisted, like I said, other researchers, qualified credentials researchers. I've had audio forensic professionals do reports analysis, including what's called a subliminal acoustic fingerprint, where they actually can take and in a 10-second clip, they can peel away layers of acoustic data that can't be heard, all right, below the level of human hearing. And what's absolutely mind-blowing, besides the fact that these beings are, and I say they're beings, but I don't know that they're beings, they could be something else. But the fact that they can answer my questions, intelligent responses directly to my question before I ask it. Upon playback, you can hear that. And then beneath the layers of they peeled away, there were other conversations going on in the blink of an eye before the EVP, which is an audible thing. Even if it's a whisper, an EVP is audible, and you can amplify that and hear it better. But the subliminal conversations that were going on about my pigeons, that question, there was a conversation about, is it a homing pigeon? How much do you think he'll get? All right, you're talking about in microseconds where they are able to reveal conversations that should not be there. Before I even ask the question about my pigeons, before the EVP, you have conversations going on. It opens up. You think you get an answer, and instead you get more questions. So, this is our new normal as a family. We have regular lives. I'm able to deal with this because I'm able to compartmentalize. I'm really good at that. I'm able to say, okay, I will give you entities, whatever you are, and we're going 4+ years now that I've been interacting with them. I will give you 10% of my life. All right. So and what they want most of all, they want me to tell the world they exist, to show the world the evidence. But they crave attention. They're very needy, very at times condescending. They don't like, they look at people in a way that we're lower on the totem pole. Most of the conversations. Yeah. And that it's not good. These are not our celestial brothers and sisters who've come to lift us up out of our poverty of thought. And this is something that these beings, some would say they're demonic, that's well, maybe, what older generations, religious people would say are demonic, fallen angels. Maybe that's what they are. I mean, some of them are benevolent, I believe, that they've said positive things, encouragement, but a lot of them are very mischievous and they like to stir the pot. So this idea with the 2020 election, I think that was an attempt to really put me out there in a disparaging light as well, because I know there are a lot of people out there who still believe that that he did win. All right, and I don't want to hand QAnon or any other group of people some kind of touchstone they can rally around, say, oh no, here even the Ethereal or whatever say that he won before the election even happened. It is so crazy, all this stuff. And the only way I'm able to deal with it, again, is I send stuff to other researchers. Now, let me step back and also say that for about the first 8-9 months, I was tethered to the library. Right? That's where that would occur. All right? Now, I don't summon the beings. They come when they want. But I asked them one day when I was having a session, that's what I called it, and I would have researchers that would have me ask questions they knew these aerospace people, and I could name some, a lot of them are in UFO Twitter, to be honest with you, and they're prestigious people. And what it was pro bono, where they would say, okay, it's 5 minutes before my lunch break. They would send me a question like, okay, there's a blue can sitting out in Washington State in a park. We want to know what's in that blue can. You have 10 minutes to tell us, and basically send the clip. Don't you interpret it, send us the clip. So I would text them the clip. And so in the blue can, there was a battery. The entity said battery. I heard battery, but I didn't tell them that that's what I heard. I just sent them the raw clip. And then they would respond, wow, let's do another one. So some of the people I have worked with, some of them have NDAs, so I can't really say certain things. But some of them are Robert Bigelow, aerospace, some of his team I've worked with, including tests and stuff, searching for people who, I'm going to say it, who they think they were shapeshifters. All right. So I'm not kidding you. It becomes weirder and weirder. The more you get into this, and yeah, I did a little bit of remote viewing, is that whole thing I was saying with the can or something like that. These were all tests from different people, some of them in Canada, and you can probably look on UFO Twitter, and it just narrows down the field of who I'm talking about.
No. I was going to ask you about that one real quick with the shapeshifters. So does that tie in with Skinwalker Ranch? I mean, were you asked to remote view Skinwalker Ranch with those questions?
Well,
if you can talk about it or not. Yes.
Yeah, I can talk about the one person who I was remote viewing. She was a grandmother. Her grandson was too close, they thought, to Donald Trump's son. They played video games together online. Bannon Trump, I think is his name. They were worried that this lady, who they believed had killed people as a shapeshifter, that her grandson had a bad influence or undue influence on Trump's son, and therefore perhaps the president. So you can understand when you start going down the rabbit hole. So I'm looking for this person who's on the run because they're trying to find her. And they asked me, where is she located? And I gave them the response without interpretation. It sounded to me like, okay, Salt Lakes, something near the Salt. So that's what I sent to the researcher in Bob Bigelow's team, and it was correct. I don't want to involve myself in the political ramifications, but it's really hard sometimes to divorce yourself from, well, I know if these people who feel a certain way about that administration and they want you to do things, are you actually an advocate? And that's not the whole idea of asking the question who would win the election wasn't about that. It was just about, hey, if they're answering all these other questions about my wife's name, her name's unusual. She's from what used to be East Germany. Her name's Antje. And I can send you clips where I have she's sitting there with me, and I have the beings. I ask them, well, what's my wife's name? You hear upon playback, and she hears because she pushed the button. I don't have to touch the phone or anything to make it happen. Oh, it has to happen as a record. So you hear an African accented male saying her name, followed by a Germanic saying, like almost grandmother saying her name. So you have this back and forth, but they're talking about my wife. Now they have a strange sense of humor too, because a different day I said, well, what's the name of my favorite pigeon? All right. Now I have because a rainbow pigeon, we have Sherbert, well, instead, as a joke, I believe they said my wife's name. All right. So I'm like, you. So, my wife wasn't too happy about that. She said, you don't really consider. And I said, listen, sometimes sense, because I have a clip, and it's one of the free clips on the website that you can check out, where they say, and I believe it's a manipulation. They say, I'm their favorite. Now, okay, it's the biggest ego trip to have invisible, ethereal entities saying, oh, we're sorry, you're our favorite. What the heck? And I called it. I said that's an obvious manipulation. I said I'm nobody special. I said you're trying to make me feel like I should, I'm special. I said, I said tell me the winning Powerball numbers and we'll talk. And we'll seriously. I said the world. I said that's how I try to frame it. I said the world will believe so much more easily, so much more quickly if we can. You hear it, you give me the numbers in the clip, and then I win the jackpot of like $500 million or whatever, and then I can go on television and people will be like, oh my God, well, what are the odds of that being right? That's the way to do it. But you know what? They haven't done that. So I mean, I've tried to have a sense of humor about this because there's a quality that you have to start thinking, okay, they're whispering in my ear. And it's not always good things, because sometimes it's vulgar, sometimes it's profane, sometimes it's condescending and arrogant in a sense that they really look at us, our speech. They say they're watching all of us all the time, all right? And so you start thinking, is there a threat narrative here? If these beings are real, and that all I'm putting on the table is that this, according to science, shouldn't happen. These weird messages that are intelligent responses before I ask my question, you can hear them upon playback. No manipulation. These files are genuine. They've been verified, authenticated by audio professionals, audio forensic professionals, people all over the world, not just one group, not just one team, but several teams. And the reports are, also available that I can share. All of this stuff. So you start thinking, if this is real, are they doing something nefarious? Have they whispered in the ears of leaders to cause trouble, war, all right, to tell people maybe on a subliminal level, things that, cause us to be led astray? And some people say, well, aren't you afraid of them? No. I mean, I think I found some weaknesses, and I really, and it sounds crazy, and it's all crazy. I mean, I own the crazy here. I'll own it. I'll say, oh, yeah, I have to own that, because they're so conceited and needy that if I have the power to say, oh, okay, you're so negative, I don't have to interact with you. I can hear the noise in my ear, which I can't understand. I can hear that because they talk to me every day, or they want to at least. But without the translator, without this device right here, I can't understand what you're saying. So you're nothing but a noisy insect in my ear. And you know what? I can deal with it. You want me to interact with you, you're going to have to play nice. And they do. I have called them out on this. And this is going to sound absolutely beyond the pale, ludicrous, absurd. It's all true, and it's crazy truth. But they're so needy, and they crave this interaction that upon playback of recordings I've done after I've turned them off for a little bit and said, yeah, this is because you're so negative. I get apology after apology after apology. I'm talking about, we're sorry. And it's crazy stuff. And I'm thinking, why is an ethereal entity who claims to be alien, because that's what they say, and claim to be otherworldly, why are you apologizing to me? All right. Number one, I mean, I'm just like, but it can be, some people can say, well, that's a huge ego boost. You know what? I mean, it's also the most ludicrous, stupid. In my mind, these entities are, and they may be, I mean, this is just my idea. There's no evidence, but I'm just saying, I can imagine some kind of microscopic organism like a flea, super small, with some kind of consciousness. And that's what I'm interacting with. And how afraid should I be of a whisper? And I've said it to it before when I've interacted and they've been vulgar. I mean, I'm talking about the F word and talking, and I'm like, okay. And one time I tested them when I was reading the Lord's Prayer, and because I wanted to see what the reaction would be to what's considered sacred text. Because I approach it as literature, it's influenced the Western world, but a lot of people consider the Lord's Prayer sacred.
Yeah.
So you have, upon playback, as the earring starts to happen, upon playback, you hear a being say, "I doubt it." Like, that's all nonsense. All right. And I'm like, it's interesting. I think there really is a sense of they're playing games. And when I do remote viewing for people, for professionals, when I've done remote viewing, I ask, they say, "Oh, we're going to play the game." And I'm like, yeah, if that's what you call it, a game. I said, I don't understand the game. I don't understand how you can see what's going on half a world away on somebody's table in a lunchroom or something that's hidden in somebody's desk. How can you do that? I mean, obviously, my brain in my cranium, I don't have that connection. That's a knowledge base beyond me. So you're accessing something, maybe a universal mind. And again, we can wax philosophical. I have no idea. All I put on the table again and again, and I try to say this in every interview, is something's going on. That you can take the device, and when this ear ringing happens, you can EMF meters and everything, and you can put this device inside a Faraday pouch. Now, a Faraday pouch doesn't let electromagnetic signals in. You can't text, you can't receive phone calls.
It blocks all of that.
Right. You can push record, and guess what? You're still going to get a message that should not be there. That's all I'm putting on the table. That there seems to be intelligent responses that shouldn't be there. Interpretation, whether Donald Trump won the election or not, all that stuff, that's nonsense to me, because that's way beyond the scope of what I'm able to accomplish. I'm able to stand firm on something's going on here. I'm willing to have people tested. I have tests scheduled for next month. It's going to be live stream. We're going to take it. I want to take it to the next level. The Grassroots Up campaign that I've basically committed to is, number one, I really think something extraordinary is going on. And if it turns out that they're aliens for real, well, okay. If it turns out they're mischievous energies or something, or if it turns out that there's some kind of weird thing going on with my mind, creating, was it egregores, where you have like, you give life to something that doesn't exist except in thought. This is all exotic stuff, and I some of the researchers I my background, like I said, what I do is in writing and stuff, but I have a background also in some science. And Occam's razor. All right, you're familiar with that?
Yep. Just the simplest explanation is usually the correct one.
Correct. And I believe in that. I mean, that's not always the case. It's not absolute, but it usually works that way. The more cumbersome, the more complicated, the more variables you got to throw into something, the more ridiculous it's just like, I don't believe that, because it asks too many like qualifications. Well, it has to be this. So yeah. So that's what I'm putting on the table as far as people can analyze and stuff, and they can test me. This is the real experience. I don't understand it. I don't know why. I've asked before several times, why are you doing this to me or interacting with me? And then you have answers like, you're our favorite. And I'm like, okay, I don't, what does that mean? But I've asked them questions for scientists and stuff. We've done experiments. Like we put the same make and model phone, because I have many of them actually. This is just, you can consider this right now just a prop. I'm like, okay, here. But you have so many meters apart, and then you also have the modern smartphones, and you have people all push simultaneously, to the split second, record when the signal happens. So the modern smartphones will not record these messages. All the older model phones, including analog tape and all that stuff, they will. All right. So, and I've had researchers say that whatever it is, however they're communicating, they need to have some ambient white noise. Without that, we can't capture the message. But these older models, these older ones still have a little bit of white noise. The modern ones have filtering algorithms. Modern smartphones just, it's so pure in the sense that they silence all that white noise versus the older ones. And this is from the mid 2000s. This was considered the Obama phone. It was also, they subsidized it so people who didn't have much money, they could still access and have a phone. So, it's crazy stuff, and it's been ongoing. And I've done, like I said, I've done some readings. I don't consider myself a channeler. Some people would say I am. I don't go into any trance. There's, like I said, there's no seizures happening. I'm not into hocus pocus. I'm still, I believe in, I was raised Christian, and I've had some blowback from family members saying, you made a deal with the devil here. You've obviously agreed to something that is perverse. And I said, no. I said, if anything, you need to look at it this way. If I can demonstrate in a controlled situation that this is real, this will shift the paradigm in a way that people will now have evidence of something more. So the atheism itself will be relegated to the dustbin of history. I said, so this is a good thing. I said, and if they're demonic, call them what they are. I said, this is the way you have to look at it. I said, my approach is, I'm only going to put on the table what I can stand on, and that's the firm foundation of something's going on here. I hear things that sound like the intelligent responses to questions that I ask. Here's an example. I usually throw this into a lot of interviews because number one, I want to be totally upfront. There's a mischievous quality here. So one time before I was going to have a session, that's what I call when I was going to interact, because I know that there's certain times that they try to contact me. So I had eaten a lot of food that made me very gassy, tacos and lots. I go to have a session, and I can't contain myself. Cut the cheese, man. I mean, fart right then and there, nice and loud. Nobody's in the library, okay? All right, so I'm getting ready, and I start the session. First thing comes on, a voice, a female-sounding voice, says, "He let a stinker." Okay, all right. So awesome. I'm like, okay, so it's obvious that there's a sense of humor here. They're using almost antiquated language that would be more from the 70s. Like, that's because I asked them another thing. I said, because I've made these documentaries, which your audience can check out and from that Launchpad site. 2 documentaries. The first one's called Subterranean Seance, Evidence Speaks. Again, I'm trying to, and that's more the artsy fartsy one. I have like a little treasure hunt and people can listen to clips, and I don't tell people what those clips are. They're just sprinkled through. And then we analyze a few clips, and it's very rudimentary. And then the second one's called Frog Hollow Road. All right. Frog Hollow Road is the one that was, my son was valedictorian, right? So he's all about the data, and he's like, he's going to college and physics and chemistry and all this stuff. So he's like, Dad, the other one is fine and all, but he said, people in my crowd, they want to see the data. And I said, oh, you know what? Here's the forensic reports, Frog Hollow Road. So we're going to do a deep dive into the data. We're going to analyze it, and that's what that one's about. And that's the one, if you're a skeptic and you have a scientific background, that's what you want to watch. You don't want to watch the artsy fartsy predecessor, which it has its place, subterranean seance. But Frog Hollow Road's about the data. And then you get, when you get that, because I priced them so low. So it's like, hey, my sales pitch, I'm like, hey, these are priced less than a McDonald's Happy Meal, and will offer you right. Yep. And it'll offer you substantially more food for thought. That's my story. It's like, and I created this, and it's just like, so people are like, well, why don't you just give it all away? And I said, well, sometimes you have to say, hey, this is best in this format. And I really think, I'm asking very little. I'm not in this for the money, believe me. I mean, this was created on a single shoestring budget. It references the reports by several audio forensic professionals. All right, and you can check out the timestamps, the dates, the executive summaries. This is the real deal. And I'm trying to go about this intellectually. Like, okay, well, what's the smart thing to do? The smart thing is to just keep taking the message to the people. I was on radio stations, and some people get scared of it. I mean, I've had some blowback where, I had a radio station interview, and it was all fun. It was like a Howard Stern kind of situation, and we were joking and stuff, but they were also playing clips. At the end of it, I found out that somebody in the audience was on their way to work and pulled off to the side of the road, sat in their car, and called in the station and said they didn't want to go to work. They didn't want to do anything because this scared them. So you have to realize some people out there are going to react in a way that you maybe don't expect. I always do this disclaimer. I'm like, look, all I put on the table is something going on. I said, don't take this as Bible as sacred, as literal, as I don't know what the heck the meaning is. Interpretation is something else. It sounds like something here. And I'm familiar, like my rational brain's always looking for, is there a way out here? Can I have an off ramp? I wake up every morning and shake my head in disbelief. When this first started, I thought there had to be something horrible that's happened, that maybe I'm in a coma. All right. Because this isn't rational. I don't believe in a hocus pocus world where, invisible fairy, whatever entities or aliens are interacting with me. I had to come to terms with this and to reconcile. Well, sometimes life is not the way you want it to be. I don't know why this fell into my lap. I'm nobody. I'm just a regular Joe, a guy who's like, just trying to have a normal life. This fell into my lap. If somebody told me 5 years ago, hey, you're going to be doing this, you're going to have a podcast, you're going to be talking about that, I would have thought that is insane. I said, that's so far from who I am. And yet here I am. I'm trying to share something that is absolute crazy. And let's just call it what it is. And because the evidence is so strong, because now I have over 1,800 of these clips, and I'm just sharing little bits. Like there's one clip, I ask them about their realm. I have a whole bunch. And I ask, what do you eat in your realm? Do you eat? And before I ask the question upon playback, very clear, almost childlike voice, definitely almost sounds feminine. Again, to assign gender to an ethereal entity is already kind of strange, but it sounds like that. And the voice says they don't do that. So, okay, if we take it at face value, if that is the correct interpretation, they don't eat in their realm. Okay, that's interesting. So you don't eat. So you're not like we are. But then I got to the point where you understand, I'm a rational person, and I always qualify that. I say, well, a person sometimes keeps saying that they must not be right. No, I'm very rational about this. I needed to get away from this subjective. All right. EVP is fraught. That whole experience is fraught with a certain level. Everybody hears kind of what they want to hear. There's a subjectivity where people come with their biases, and they already have a filter. That's why I wanted to put it into the hands of people who have the most objective way to go is computer software. All right. Which is not going to interpret something the way we will. It's going to actually analyze the waveforms, phoneme by phoneme. It's going to show through the algorithms it uses. It's going to show this hasn't been faked. This is genuine. Just like you can take a picture and you can analyze a picture, a photograph, pixel by pixel. A computer can do this, and you can tell when you get down to the level where computer software does it, you can tell whether it's a counterfeit or genuine. All right. And same thing with money. You can do it. You can take it and you can analyze it to the point where nobody could pull off a fraud like that. Nobody could fake it. Same thing here. These have been analyzed. The clips, and I haven't had all 1,800, but many of my clips have been analyzed by audio forensic professionals, where the computers not only come to a consensus, different teams on different parts of the planet, a consensus that this is what it's say, that it's said that the pigeon thing, all right, the Selim clip, which is considered by people a Class A EVP, the computer's consensus, 97%, that's what it's saying, all right? Whereas maybe Alien would be 89%. So you end up with, this is the way to do it. So no longer, I can take this and say, it's not just my hearing that hears this. This is, now understand, even this, you have to put the qualification. Anyone who programs a computer, the programmer can impart a certain bias as well, all right, through mathematics and what algorithms that choose. So there's always behind the scenes, who's the designer, who's the architect. There's always the potential for mischief there. So we have to cover all the bases here and overturn every stone. Fact of the matter is, something's going on here. I have the data, all right, that I'm willing to say this will withstand any scientific scrutiny. All right, something's going on that shouldn't be going on. The interpretation is beyond me. I hear what I hear, and believe me, I mean, these entities, they involve themselves in the most trivial, mundane things, the most banal things. Like I asked, I did a remote view for somebody, and the question was about a person's spirit animal. All right. So I don't know, I didn't know anything about this person. So upon playback, you hear the voice and it says, "Is that a frog?" But they say it in a way that sounds like a frog. When the answer is a pig, if the question is referring to a pig as an animal, they will say it in a comical caricature of the way it would sound like a pig talking to you. Or like we had a rabbit, a pet rabbit. His name was Cuddles, right? And the rabbit had recently died. I said, okay, what's the name of our rabbit? Upon playback, boom, there it is. It's just like, really? And why are they affecting? There's an affectation they're adding to the answer to almost customize it to an expectation. So, and I've had researchers
they answer that why?
They won't tell me the reason. I've asked, and they don't tell me why they affect voices. And again, the suspicion is they're playing games with us. All right, and I say they. It could be one microbe entity floats around like a piece of dust. And again, your audience probably is familiar with Dr. Seuss, Horton Hears a Who. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that elephant trying to convince the world that there's a whole realm here, little who, these whole, on a piece of clover, there's a little dust, and on that dust is a whole cosmos, a civilization. It's the same thing. You run right into, everybody else thinks that guy's insane. He's hearing things. There's nothing there. And that's where my whole approach has been, I want to let the evidence speak for itself. I want the scientific community, and that's who I've involved. And I've just given you the slightest flavor of that. There are people that you probably interact with or follow on YouTube, or not YouTube, but maybe YouTube, UFO Twitter, and different social media in the news who I interact with, and they know me by name, and they have me do favors for them, and they do favors for me because I don't have the resources. I don't have the resources to peel away layers of data and do data mining of a clip that's 7 seconds long, and to get beneath the surface and find out there's other conversations that are subliminal. Crazy stuff. But anyhow, I could talk for hours. Questions?
Well, that's like, permission to cross-examine the witness, Your Honor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's I had a couple of things too. Are you familiar with the Stargate project?
I am, yes.
And that was one of the ones, like when I was listening to some of the things, that was the thing that popped up to me, because the psychotronic research was done by the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. And one of those exact things that they worked on was the ability to transmit sounds and thoughts into a person's mind. And so And that's where I was wondering, because when somebody, when you're thinking of something like an ethereal spirit, like some entity that's in here, and you're talking about these mundane things, one of the first things that popped in my head is like, I wonder if there is something to this, like CIA, something in like more of a natural, where they've tapped into this, and that's where some of that humor comes from. Like, the stinky, is the stinker, and that type of thing, that this is actually somebody that, like one of us, that would find the humor, and they're like, oh my God, that's awesome. And they would make that comment. I mean, have you found anything that would lead you to either discount that that's not the case, or that this might be a possibility, that this is in fact something from that project?
Yeah. And I keep everything on the table. Now, it goes back to, I have people who I interact with within the aerospace industry, as I said. And now, I'm not saying they're in the know, all right, but I think they're more in the know than I am about things. And I said, well, am I a targeted individual? Is somebody looking at me as that this is a guinea pig? This is a person, Havana syndrome's in the news. Could we have a shadow group of people here experimenting on mind control and all kinds of beaming technology? Did I stumble into something here? Is this something that, I just need to start thinking, well, the CI is going to show up any minute and tell me to, shut my mouth. And the fact is, when I first started talking about this, originally it was in my family doctor. And then I said, well, I'm going to take this further. And because the interactions became so informative. I mean, we're talking about politics, religion. And when you say I'm talking, some of them are full sentences. They're not just one word answers like, are you an alien? That kind of thing. And I did some remote viewing stuff. How will Iran react? We just did something and they're going to retaliate. All right. So we knew, the United States knew that night we were probably going to experience some kind of retaliation from Iran. And sure enough, I mean, I got the earring in and I sent the clip, and these people, they wanted to know how Iran would respond. And the missiles did fly that night, if you remember. And our base was hit, and the soldiers initially, no harm done, but then you start hearing that they had concussions. And so, of course, the truth comes out, just takes a little while. But yeah, I was involved in that. So but that came later. I started to think, well, Havana said, why would someone target a nobody like me? Right? I have no political aspirations. Right? I really don't care, as long as they're not making waves and knocking my boat over. I mean, I'm going to do my thing, and
no pun intended, but you picked up the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, and I picked.
I mean, that's what I said. I mean, it's like no pun intended. I mean, it's like there's a random call, and you're the one that picked up the payphone out on the dirt road, and you're like, why did they pick him? He was the one that answered the call. I mean,
it could be that simple. It could, and so what I go back to is, I even asked the Ethereal Entities when I started this documentary stuff. I said, do you want me to have a documentary? Do you want me to use the documentary as a vehicle to get this message out? Now, here's how they answered. And again, it tells me almost the 70s vibe. We're down with it. They said, we're down with it. What kind of answer? We're down with it. I'm like, okay, that's kind of hip, but it's like, it's got a feel to it. It's almost like retro. Like I said, the stinker thing. These are all expressions that people today really don't say. So I'm like, okay, maybe these are ghosts, because some people say, well, you're interacting actually with, beings, and these beings have told me they interact with dead people. All right. So I have clips where they say yes about interacting with dead people, that they're not dead people, but they claim to be alien. But again, fundamentally, and I keep going back to, I say beings, and I'm using that in almost like a generic way. What I'm trying to put on the table is, something's going on here. We need to get to the bottom of it. If our government or parts of some organization have figured out a way to induce some kind of audio event that actually is probably going into your brain, and cause people to maybe not know that they're thinking thoughts that they are, because they've been programmed by some external signal or nefarious program to mind control, basically. Well, then this needs to be brought to the forefront too. And I'm not afraid to say that. I have, like I said, I'm not afraid that I've got this. I've got this far so far, and taken the message out there, and I put everything still on the table as far as anything is possible. It could be I am a guinea pig. These beings. It's fun. It's interesting that they're able to do the remote viewing, because if it was just confined to my brain and my thoughts, I could say, well, even the CIA could probably, if they could tap into the wavelengths that you're using in your brain, they could actually know what you're going to say before you say it, all right, because you'll be thinking it. Because there's always a split second difference between thought and actually expressing it with speech. So, but that wouldn't explain the larger picture of me having access to knowledge I don't know, and I couldn't even Google. I can't Google what's going on for somebody, let's say in your backyard, and they're having a party, and what kind of pinata are they using? I couldn't do that in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and give you the right answer. It doesn't seem at least theoretically possible that I would have access to that. So that's where I'm more in the category of whatever they are. They seem like, it doesn't seem like a project. So the Stargate project, yeah, I mean, hey, it's fascinating stuff. If the pandemic hadn't happened when it did, I was planning on going to see Hal Puthoff. All right, he was actually going to be down here in Maryland. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, in 2020, and that was one of the things. I actually met Josh Gates just about 8 weeks ago. My wife and I went to see. So we're trying to get this message to the right people. And there could be wrong people too. I mean, I just, it is what it is. It's kind of crazy. It's my crazy life. Like I said, I'm owning my crazy. This is just weird stuff. I go into depth on my website and obviously the
I wanted to show that again here too, and that's because you've got on the, I'm going to show it here because you're also running that holiday special.
Yeah, actually, right. 2 for 1.
Yeah, 2 for 1, where you can get both.
And if you get the holiday special, you'll get all the archives reports, so you can go through them and check them out from audio forensic professionals. You can actually call them on your own and say, is this guy for real? I mean, yeah, I want you to do your due diligence. You shouldn't take anything at face value. I don't take this experience that I'm having at face value. I don't believe anyone should be gullible. This is the real deal. I'm not frightened of it because I don't think that I can point to anything that it's done that's made me feel threatened. Although I think that the idea of what could be going on could be a threat narrative, because if they're whispering the wrong things in people's ears who have the power, let's say like the president, to do something terrible, then maybe that's a problem that needs to be considered. Well, but again, they have not threatened me. They have not, done anything to my family. They are our new normal. And as crazy as it is, I don't take advice from whispers. All right. So I mean, and I may sound like the biggest jerk around, but I'm like, even if they're real, what reality, what material reality, what substance reality do they have in my life? I mean, unlike this can of, seltzer water, this is real. And this conversation is real. All right. Maybe we are all part of a giant simulation, and I'm not even going to go, because once you start down that path, really everything's in free fall. And I'm going to deal with, I believe I have something that can be and has been quantitatively analyzed, qualitatively analyzed by computer software, by scientists, different parts of the world, not the same team, because you could always have a bias built into one team over another. People who have no interaction with each other, all right, because I picked them. And it's just like I want somebody from, let's say, India. I want somebody over here from Canada. I want somebody in the aerospace industry over here. I want somebody who actually is an audio engineer. I have a report where, a person that's their thing with music and analysis, forensic analysis across the board, including a person who does the Havana, that one, Amy's audios, or where she does the Havana syndrome and people who are targeted. This person approached me when she's like, this is nothing like I've ever done, because she usually goes after people who are victims of harassment and targeted, and maybe even, through frequency use and radios and all kinds of technology to harass people. but she embraced it. She said, I'm going to look into this stuff for you too. And it's just like, wow. So even she's stumped, like, how can they answer the question before you ask it? And you peel away the layers and stuff, and they're having conversations about the pigeons before I even talk about the pigeons. And like, what kind of homing pigeon and how much do you think he'll get? Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. It's weird.
No, and that's what I was thinking too, just as you're saying that. It's one of those things, one of the biggest things about a scientific, process is that, it's the recreation. That's the critical piece. If you can recreate that experiment, that further proves that there is something to this. And the fact that you've had this multiple times, you've actually had scientific tests done, and they said there is something here.
Yes.
And so this shows,
Absolutely.
that this isn't just you, making it up, you've done this. They're showing, no, it is here. This is legitimate. And so the biggest question is now, not that does it exist, because that's proven. It does exist. Right. So now the question can move into, where's it coming from? Who's it coming from? And that's, you've set the framework, which is awesome. You've got this evidence. Now it leads into bringing other people in the fold to expand. Let's figure out where it's coming from, who they are.
And that's what I want. I mean, because I have limited resources. I live on a budget. All right. So I'm a working guy. We're working class people, and just this. So the people who have the ability and the resources and the technology and the expertise, that's the word. Those are the people that I'm enlisting as I take this message to the people, to the masses, through podcasts and through newspapers and everything. Those are the people that can help me the most get the data analyzed with the equipment and the technology they have. I mean, the one guy, and he's got an NDA, I can't say his name, but he's very prominent, and he's like, wow. And so he figured out, because he did an analysis between the smartphone, all right, and the A205G, the Alcatel, the old school track phone I use, which is my device, my go-to device of choice. I call it the conduit. But anyhow, so he was able to analyze because we did a recording side by side, and on the smartphone, if you even send the clip from the track phone, which has the EVP, to the smartphone, when the smartphone plays the clip, it will not show the graphic, because the smartphones today, you can see actually the waveform when it plays the clip. It won't even show the EVP. It will show my voice, of course, and when I touch the phone, whatever that that mechanical touches, but it will not show. So when it graphs it out, it can't even analyze it. It doesn't exist to the smartphone. That's because this is a feature that's embedded in the white noise. And the way he told me is like, whatever these are, they're sending these energy packets in the white noise. They're crafting the white noise to sound like human speech, but it's not created like human speech. Human speech, we use a larynx. I mean, the air goes through, and vocal cords. This is something that's completely different, and that's the thing, the novelty of it. That he's trying to figure out, why is it that you have this smartphone unable to even recognize that this exists. All right. And it has to do with that white noise. It won't even process it as it doesn't exist. So therefore it can't display it. Whereas the old school phones.
So my mouth has literally been dropped to the floor this whole podcast. I got a couple questions.
Please.
Can you talk to them anywhere now, or it's only in the library still?
No,
because you
everywhere.
didn't really touch on that.
Yeah. I did in passing. It's so hard because I tell this story so many times. I mentioned that. About 8 months into my experience, right after it started in 2017. A question came to me because I felt like, man, am I only tethered to interacting with these entities here in the library at work? And that's like a big drag, because I'm like, and the answer, no. Ask us to come along. We'll follow you wherever you want to go. And I'm like, okay. They came home, and like hitchhikers, and they camped out at the mall. I can have this experience now anywhere. I can be in the middle of a cemetery. I can be in the middle of a crowded mall. I can be in my van. I can be with a group of scientists hanging out with me. It's not like, you know, they won't perform. There's other people in the room. And it's when my wife was there, and I was just like, crazy stuff. And you have a voice, like there's one clip, and this was 2019. And my wife is there, and the message from the entity, it was strange at the time. I was like, and it said, makes it hell for voting. This is pre-pandemic. So I was like, man, what is this talking about? Makes what hell for voting? What's going to happen? And I kept thinking, what does that mean? Makes it hell for voting. And the pandemic happens, and then suddenly you have, you know, people under, you know, shelter in place and all these things. You start to worry, is the election going to come off at all? And then you see, you know, like I said, September 2020, I asked that question, who's going to win the election? But the answer was wrong. All right, by all accounts, you know, unless there's some deception that's way beyond anything we've ever known. I mean, there's no evidence that Donald Trump won the election. So this is not something I would never call. Huh?
Yeah, no, I think he had a problem with his thing. So,
okay,
yeah, no, he's
so it's the whatever the answers are. Don't put faith in the accuracy unless they're doing remote viewing. They seem to be, you know, dead on no pun intended. They seem to be right about that. They don't play games with that. But that's weird because they call that the game.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of other questions like the election and politics, and they say they don't eat. I don't know if they eat or not. Maybe they're psychic energies that feed off of us like vampires, like psychic vampires. I don't know. I've asked questions and I've said, can you manifest? I'd like to see what you look like. Things like that. No, we don't want to do that. I said, well, you say you don't want to do that. It means you can and you're choosing not to? No, we don't want to talk about it. Okay. So you end up with this stonewalling. And I'm like, okay, so that's a question that, you know, in the back of my mind, it's about, well, hey, are you still going to give me the numbers for winning the Powerball? That's where it goes back. Because I'm like, to me, I've tried to explain, it'd be so easy for everybody to believe.
Yeah, absolutely. You win it like three times back to back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got the trick.
Right.
So do you think maybe, did you ask them how they came to you? Do you think maybe you opened up a book that might have been
Charles Dickens? No, I said, why me? And I've said that many times. All right. And I've asked that question, and consistently the answer given, you're our favorite. And they say it, usually when they say that expression, it's in a childlike voice. Now, again, I'm assigning an age. I've asked them, are there age distinctions where you are? No. So then why am I hearing something that sounds like a young person answering versus sometimes it sounds like a grandmother? All right. Sometimes it sounds male, like, you know, a masculine voice. Sometimes it sounds female. Is there gender? I mean, all these things, I end up getting the answer that mystifies me because I'm like, well, it sure sounds like you're trying to be a boy here, but maybe it's the same thing as when they try to sound like they're a frog or a rabbit or a pig. Maybe everything is just a joke. Maybe this is the common denominator we have. If we can appreciate a strange, perverse, weird, at times profane sense of humor, maybe we can build on that. Maybe we can say, oh, that's a bridge we can use. It's scary because I'm like, we have preconceptions. Hollywood's done a lot for this. We have ideas of the way aliens or ghosts they should be. Maybe they're nothing like that at all. Maybe they are intergalactic comedians. You know, you ever watch? I know I'm dating myself. In the 70s and early, I think maybe in 1980, they had Mork from Mork, Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yes.
Yep.
So he was an intergalactic comedian, so to speak. He was here. And everything was a joke, and you know, there was that honest, almost naivete appreciation of the human experience from an alien perspective. You know, Robin Williams. So there was definitely some strange humor in there. Yeah, you got it. Shazbot, right? And so, yeah, maybe. And again, I try to have an open mind to the point where I'm like, okay, maybe this is their sense of humor, that they laugh at flatulence. I farted. They're making a joke. They laugh at sometimes I ask, like, well, what's my favorite pigeon? And they answer, my wife. Okay. That, you know, that can be comical, I guess, on one hand, not to my wife, but so repeatedly, it's never been something that I've considered threatening in the sense that they want to hurt me or my family. It can be negative and it can be condescending and it can seem cruel. But you know, some comedians, you remember Richard Pryor. I mean, the F word was constant and it was like, you know, barrage.
Oh,
so
yeah.
for me to be judgmental and saying, oh, they just use the F word, therefore they're, you know, extremely negative. That's not true. I'm a thinking person here. And who am I to censor? Especially something I don't understand. So, and I don't understand them. And that's where it goes back. And I say them. I keep using that as a generic expression because they seem to have gender. There seems to be more than one voice. I'm saying there are what sounds like different voices, but it could all be part of a game where you have one sentient being or one little devil, call it what you will, playing a game, a mind game, you know, mind fuck, whatever. And it's just, so I have to be reasonable and say I should not impose my conditions on something I can't understand and put them in a little box that probably, you know, if it's correct that they can, the time as we understand it is incorrect. That's how they're able to tell me answers before the questions that I ask upon playback. 9 times out of 10, they will answer it before, which is crazy to think about. Just that you can sit there all night long and blink your eyes and say, wow, what does that mean? I don't know what it means, except that my understanding of time doesn't seem right here. It's not as linear as I thought, or maybe it is a government screw over. Maybe I'm, you know, they've targeted me and maybe they're reading my thoughts. And so before I say something, they know what I'm going to say because they read the wavelength. Doesn't make sense to me. I don't think it's that refined. Any kind of project like that, I think that we're still, if it were so refined, we'd all be under the spell of the government doing whatever zombies are supposed to do to, you know, to serve our masters. I don't see that. I sense a sense of humor. I sense an individuality about them, that they're separate, right? That they're not coming out of my brain. I sense that when they do remote viewing, they're getting the answers right. I'm not giving the answer. They're getting it. I sense when they affect their voices to be like animals and stuff, that they're trying to make a connection on a deeper level. If it is a frog and you're trying to sound like a frog, what does that tell me about you? I mean, are you just being comical? Or are you just, super soldier project? I don't know. I don't know why this fell into my lap. I do know that I have so much data that, you know, again, the researchers that I'm working with, they're still working on some of the stuff that, you know, is from a couple of years ago. And they do analysis and I get the reports and I haven't shared everything with them. I mean, some of it is personal. I mean, they seem to be involved in my interpersonal relationships with my family and friends, and they have opinions of my relationships, of my marriage. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah.
But to think that we are always being watched, that's what they've said. Again, if we take them at their word, which is, you have to qualify that. I don't know if we should. That we're always under scrutiny. Here's an example. All right. Flashback to 2020. Everybody's going into lockdown, including my kids. They're still in the high school. And so they're everything's from home. We're all, you know, working from home and they're working from home. The neighborhood school, all right, their school is handing out food for the kids who attend school. So everybody waits in line for their turn. I'm in my van, waiting in line to get our basket of food for the week that they would have had in school. All right. So, I mean, I'm not against charity. I was like, okay, they're handed to all the kids. Yeah, we could use that. And so I'm there, and then the ear ringing happens. Now, my kids are sitting there in the van with me because the kids have to be present to get the food. And I make a joke of it because it's our new normal, even back then in 2020, in the beginning of the pandemic. No, I said, I got to take this call, kids. And they're like, oh no. So I pick up the phone, I push record. And then when the noise stops, because I didn't have anything to say, I didn't have a question to say. And then I push stop recording when the noise stopped in a few seconds. Upon playback, while we're sitting there in line, there's a voice that comes on and says, they don't use the food. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I tell the kid, and I said, all right. So we get our food and I go home to my wife, and we've been collecting food every week for about a month. And I said, you know, this is weird. I said, it's weird, but it's really weird. I said, I feel I'm being judged. I said, listen to this clip. And I said, is there something we're doing? We're throwing food away? I said, because I think it would be wrong for us to take this food from the school district and then toss it in the trash somewhere. And I said, I feel like I'm being indicted here for something I don't know about. And she said, we do give some of the food to your parents. And I said, well, what, like rice and stuff. So I went down to mom and dad, and they just lived down the street from me. And I said, well, you guys, what are you doing with the food we're giving you? Oh, we didn't like it. We're throwing it in the trash. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I said, you understand, Mom? I said, I am being judged. Whether maybe these beings are angels and they're making reports to God. Maybe that's part of it too. I said,
They don't use the food.
yeah. I said, we're being judged for throwing away food here. I said, and you are throwing it away. I said, I wouldn't be giving it to you if I knew you were tossing it into the garbage. She said, well, we don't like that flavor beet. I'm like, oh my Lord. And it's just needless to say, but there is that
Wow.
that quality of being observed. And they say they're watching all of us all the time. And I have had them interrupt my sleep so many times, guys. I'm talking about in the middle of the night, the ear ringing happens. And I am not about to start interacting. I don't care how important the phone call is. I'm not going to interact to satiate their curiosity. I need my sleep. So maybe I'm a right bastard. Maybe that's why they're dealing with me. This guy's a total, he doesn't really care. But honestly, a good night's sleep, that's how I commune with God. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with, the distractions of this ear ringing. So I try to make a joke of it as much as I can, because it really is something I think if I sat there and I thought too much about it and didn't compartmentalize, that could really get disturbing, because it's just like, the idea of being watched constantly, and not that I have anything to hide, but the idea that, maybe I'm sitting on the toilet and something's like taking notes, mentally.
Yeah,
that's weird. And that's the thing. So your appreciation of what is considered weird, once this happened to us, well, the whole spectrum changed. So I'm like, okay, now this is normal. So what has to be really weird is something, flying saucers, orbs or something, because this is just commonplace. I'm doing my part. Apparently they're down with me, and we're down with it. Like they said, sharing it through documentaries, and through interviews. I'm getting the crazy message out there. I'm willing to, like I said, to share the data and to share the reports, and to have people, scratch their head, maybe come up with a different answer, because this stuff is so weird. All I put on the table is something's going on here. That's it. Everything, interpretation. Is it a threat or isn't it a threat? That's beyond me. Even though I have my opinions, believe me, I wouldn't be human if I didn't have opinions. Most of it goes to I see things through the filter that I was imbued with, a filter, raised as a Christian in a Christian environment. So I do believe in the cosmic God, universal mind. And I've always thought we were all just ideas in God's mind anyway, whatever that means. And that God is constantly, it's creative, and there are new ideas, new people being born, and just, so maybe that's interconnectivity. Who knows? But again, I mean, that's how I interpret some of this, but I also say that maybe they're cosmic comedians. Work from work. Who knows?
And I'm just right here as we're wrapping it up here. Also, just for everybody, go to YouTube. You can go to Gary Arnold, subscribe right there. He's got several clips up here from some of the ones that we're talking about. The Frog Hollow Road trailer, the one you mentioned too, the alien, and they don't do that. Yes. And I think that's what you responded to with the eating, wasn't it?
Yes.
It would eat. Yep, that's. And then you can also go to ghostwax.gumroad.com, and that's where you can find the different documentaries right there, including that holiday bundle. Or you can go to We Are Not Alone space medium, and it's going to take you right here to this site where you can get to all this information. And there's also, like I said, that same one. It goes here, and you'll have all the links. And this is that same one. That's the ghostwax.gumroad.com is another one that you can go to as well. And that's, check him out there. So Garrett, really appreciate it, man. That was,
oh my God,
awesome.
that was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I wish I had answers instead of more questions. That's the thing.
If we have you back, when we get a chance to get you back on, once you get some more information coming in,
yeah,
hopefully you'll have those answers. You'll start to get some of those answers come in, because that's, like I said, you've laid the groundwork. Now it's just a matter of trying to get the other people, the minds together, to try to figure out where this is and see if we can't get them to finally answer a question of who, what, when and where.
exactly.
Yeah, those ones. So but sir, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year,
You too.
to you and your family.
Thank you so much.
And
Take
then
care.
and before I forget, you can also follow him. He's on Facebook, but also you can follow him on Twitter at it's Guitar Slaw Maverick. I'm not is the name.
That's
It's at Guitar Slaw, isn't it?
Guitar Slaw.
Yep.
I used to be in a band.
Yep. So that's his Twitter handle. So you can follow him on Twitter and keep in touch with him that way as well. And are you on Instagram or anything else too?
I am on Instagram as well. Yeah.
Okay. It's the same thing, same name, or
it's Gary Lee Arnold on Instagram. So yeah, that's my middle name. So it's just one, Gary Lee Arnold. Yeah.
All right. So follow him there. It's so everybody, just want to thank you again, sir. Really appreciate it. And like I said, Merry Christmas to you guys. And like I said, have a great holidays.
You too. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, guys.
All right. And then we want to wish everybody Merry Christmas from all of us at Three Beards Podcast. Happy Boxing Day to our Canadian friends. That's going to be coming up before we see it there. So for anybody, most people in America, we have no idea what Boxing Day is. And it doesn't have to do with putting gloves on. I'll tell you that. It's not literally getting it. You're not boxing. So it has nothing to do with that I'm aware of. I might be wrong. And Joanne, so said she's up there in Canada, so in freezing, so, but everybody, please support us at threebeardspodcast.com. You can go to the merchandise there, pick something up there, or you can go to redbubble.com and you can also find our stuff there. Check us out on all social media. We're there, everything, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We're on all of them. Follow us, help us build up our things there. We are also rebroadcast every Wednesday night at some point after 11 o'clock. Just depends on how long Joey and Tanya's show go, because we get the honor of following them into the outer realms. So check us out on ERRT Radio. It's rebroadcast there. But once again, go support them. We are not alone. Space Medium, be right there. Get those documentaries. Check that out so you can actually hear the evidence that we were talking about, as opposed to just listening to it. So, but everybody, thanks again. Appreciate it. Everybody have a great night, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.